After a brief hiatus, we're back. A shower of lazy feckers. We took an extra week off for the next Auld Triangle episode, the first of 2024. We're here. A big show lined up for you. 3 guests: Danni McCormack, Conor McCarthy, and Eimear Darcy will join us today to discuss their actually recent award wins and other things coming on in 2024 for them. But we must open the show obviously on a very, very sad note today. That's just after hearing the news about Ryan Curtis and his horrific injury in preparation of his cage conflict fight. I'm going to just read out a statement that was posted on Leah McCourt's social media yesterday. As an athlete and a human, the unimaginable has happened to our beloved Ryan. He was involved in a life-altering incident during a training session on Thursday, the 11th of January. Ryan has suffered a broken back, broken neck, and a dislocated spine. During this injury, trauma was also caused to Ryan's spinal cord. The damage is classified as the most severe that can happen to a spinal cord. He was rushed to the Royal in Belfast and underwent emergency surgery. Currently, Ryan has no movement in his legs or his left arm. The road ahead is unknown and will involve at least 5 months of him being in hospital, followed by a further period of time with a specialist spinal team. There's no exact end date to when this treatment will be completed. I'm sure you all know Ryan is a dad to 2-year-old Cassia and a partner to our beautiful friend Emziak. Ryan has the most infectious, positive outlook in life and has been through some of the most horrific circumstances, always coming out a better human, man, and friend. Understandably, he is distressed at this point. We have limited access to see him. He is in ICU and hopefully being moved to the spinal ward when conditions improve. He is still showing his positive outlook, his determination and mindset to overcome yet another challenge that life has presented. It's times like this we thank God for the team of family of friends that we have around Emma, Ryan and Cassia. The outpouring of love and support is a testament to who Ryan is as a human and how many people's lives he has made better by simply knowing him. Ryan will never be able to do what he loves and fight and train MMA again. A sport he has dedicated his life from the age of 11. Ryan will be out of work for the foreseeable future. We're trying to take any additional load or stress off Ryan's family and daughter by creating a GoFundMe to raise some funds to help towards rehabilitation, vital treatment, recovery, and supporting his family. That GoFundMe will be listed in the description of this podcast wherever you're going to be listening today. Heavy hitting news, heavy hitting news, and we just wanted to bring that. Look at Caoilte, you hear stuff like this and it just brings into the realities of what these athletes, what these fighters are putting on the line by just simply going to training, getting prepared for fights and actually going in there and competing themselves. This is very heartbreaking news that we all shared yesterday at the time when we were recording this. Obviously it's a little bit earlier than when it's coming out, but tough news to deal with, Caoilte.
Yeah, it's horrific news to hear, and it was heartbreaking as soon as we saw the post and the news come out. You just feel like a drop in your stomach seeing stuff like that, knowing how he's got family, friends, and everyone looking out for him. He was just going to training, and that's the unfortunate and serious manner the sport can take in your body and the toll it can take and the accidents that can happen. And it's horrible to hear and it's devastating. Wish Ryan all the best and hope he can make a good recovery.
Absolutely. Andy, you've had the chance, obviously I was not lucky enough to get the chance to interview Ryan or speak with Ryan. You have had the chance on a couple of occasions to speak with him, and you know that news has hit you as big as it's hit us as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hit everyone in the Irish MMA community. It's like Ryan is. Look, I'm not going to pretend that I knew Ryan know Ryan particularly well. But if you just go on social media and you can see the many posts from people who are close to him and the impact that he has. But what is clear to me anytime I speak with Ryan is he's like a larger than life character. Very, very bubbly, vibrant personality. As was mentioned in Leah's post there, he's a father with a young family, and this is just heartbreaking. And it's, again, I guess, a very, very brutal reminder of the possibilities of what can happen in the sport, or the dangers that go along with it. So it's just, look, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with Ryan. Hopefully he makes a full recovery. I would be lying if I said that this doesn't remind me and bring me back to Ian Coughlin in 2021, which is only less than 3 years ago. The guy who I found today grew up very, very close to, only around the corner from Ryan. So for this to happen to, for a fighter to sustain an injury like this, where we don't know what the outcome is going to be for Ryan. Again, hopefully he makes a full recovery, and we'll find out in due course. But right now, it sounds like from Leah's post, Ryan's looking at a long road ahead as far as what comes next. And I guess what I would just say to everyone is this is when, in 2021, everyone in the MMA community really rallied behind Ian Coughlin. It was beautiful to see, and I think it's already happening now for Ryan. So look, just if you're listening to this, I would say go to Leah McCourt's page, read that again. Look at the photos that she shared of Ryan with his family, and consider sharing and donating if you can, if you're in a position to do so, because Ryan needs our help right now. So I don't think there's anything else really much to say. We don't have any details. I think it would be foolish and inappropriate for us to speculate or anything like that about what's to come. But it's a tough time right now for Ryan, for his family, for his friends, and for all of his teammates and coaches who he's shared the mats with over the years. So just sending all the well wishes and prayers and everything else in the world to him.
Yeah, very well said, Andy. Obviously, very tough time for everyone who is involved there. The whole community has gotten together, which is great to see over the last number of days. Hopefully that continues. What we will do, look, at this news has hit us all hard. It's not easy to kind of digest. It's still fresh. It's still raw. We're going to dust ourselves down. We're going to try and provide as much as a positive outlook for the rest of this podcast. I'm sure, a guy who is as positive as Ryan Curtis would want us to do that as well. And we just got to move forward. We'll move forward together, and we wish Ryan and his family all the best. Like I said, that GoFundMe link will be on all of the descriptions of all of our podcasts. We'll actively be sharing it on our social medias, and obviously, like Andy said, head over to Leah McCourt's just to get the full picture of the situation that Ryan Curtis and his family, friends, and everybody are involved in right now. We wish him the best. We wish him a full recovery, and that's it. That's all there is to be said on that. We shall move on. Like I said, we've got much to discuss in Irish mixed martial arts. Lots of announcements over the last number of weeks. And we're going to start off with a couple of the fight announcements that have come by way of some of the Irish stars in the UFC. Obviously, fight announcements for Sean O'Bannon, for Caolan Loughran, and for Rhys McKee. Unfortunate dropout, which we'll probably just focus on first. Kiefer Crosby is out of his next fight with Themba Gorimbo. That was supposed to be taking place on February 16th. And obviously that's a big blow for Kiefer, wanting to come back in. Obviously the first fight against Kevin Ducey on short notice. This was a good opportunity, get a full camp behind him. But it didn't really work out too much about that. Sean O'Bannon versus Stephanie Luciano, UFC Fight Night Vegas on March 30th. I'll just go through them all, lads, and I'll bring you in then for your thoughts. Caolan Loughran versus Angel Pacheco, UFC Fight Night Atlantic City on March 30th. Sean's is actually on March 23rd. I got that, or 23rd. Yeah, I got that mixed up. Sorry, guys. And then Rhys McKee, obviously, in Chidi and Jaquani on that Atlantic City card on March 30th as well. Andy, a little bit to digest there. Shauna, Caolan, Rhys, your thoughts?
My thoughts. I'm just delighted to see some movement, I guess, with the Irish in the UFC, and obviously, there was a lot of attention and focus, and we had an influx of fighters coming in. They had some fights, it didn't go their way, and we've kind of been waiting on the news ever since as to what's next. So now we have some dates, which is brilliant. It's obviously very unfortunate to hear about Kiefer. I know he's an issue with his back and injury, so I wish him a speedy recovery on that. And then the three others, so Shauna, Caolan, and Rhys. Yeah, brilliant to see them in there. Obviously all coming off a loss, so really, really important fights for them. The one thing that I stood out to me the most was the matchmaking for Caoilte. I think it's very appropriate. I think fighting a guy very similar experience as a professional. He'd obviously was in there, took a short notice fight against Taylor Lapalus when his original opponent fell through. That was a really, really tough ask. So I'm glad to see the UFC matchmakers consider that when they're matchmaking them this time. But these are very, very important fights. If you go 0-2, obviously this is Reese's second go in the UFC. If he picks up another loss, he could be on the chopping board again. And the same with Shauna and Caoilte. Like if they lose here, they could be looking at marching papers. We don't know. The UFC can sometimes be ruthless. Hopefully that wouldn't be the case. And obviously, look, I would be quite hopeful they can go in and get the job done here. So, but yeah, mainly good to see them. Good to see some news for them.
Absolutely. Caoilte, what do you make of the matchups? Obviously, Sean in there, like Mandy said, UFC debutant Stephanie Luciano coming in there from Jungle Fight. You know, you had mentioned she had picked up a good win against some decent competition there. Stephanie, can you kind of highlight that?
Yeah, I love the matchmaking for this one. You know, two people, similar records, both earlier in their UFC careers, and it's a big opportunity in front of a Vegas crowd too. Is it? I'm not sure if it's at the Apex, but
I think it's at the Apex now. So unfortunately, yeah. I mean, maybe if you could criticize that a little bit, you know, like Shauna, Caoilte, Reese, all in there around that March date, and it's like we're hoping. You know, we were kind of talking, when is the UFC going to come back? When is this going to come back? You know, you had 3 fighters fighting in March there. You know. Could you have made a card in Ireland in March and around St. Patrick's Day? It was a possibility. Obviously, the UFC didn't decide to do it, and some of these Apex cards are taking away from, you know, maybe some possible events that could have been taking place in Ireland or in other places as well over the last number of years. So, obviously, this one is in the Apex as well, Caoilte.
Yeah, that's a shame, but get to experience the Apex as well. It'd be interesting to see how they handle that environment. Very different from competing in front of mad crowds, like compared to what London for Shauna and the last one, for example. That's very different experience as well. So it'd be interesting how she finds that. The matchmaking I love here. I think I've said it before. Stephanie Luciano holds a win over Michelle Oliveira, high level black belt in jiu-jitsu and established pro now as well, and it's her only loss. Funnily enough, Michelle Oliveira actually, she won the IMAF Worlds back in 2017, beating guest on the show Danni McCormack in the final as well. So really good win for Stephanie. That's the one I noted on that record in particular. So really big fan of that fight. I think the Caoilte Lawford matchup is really well matched as well. As Andy said, it's good to see that kind of come rematched as well. And then we've got the last one in Reese, 2 lads who are probably fighting, well, potentially could be fighting for the UFC career in that fight. So that could go
a real banger. Like, I mean, the way Reese fights, the way Chidi and Chukwani fights, I mean, Chidi moves forward and looks to try and land big shots, and Reese McKee looks to do the same when he goes in there. So, like, I mean, that has a recipe for some serious action in that fight with Caoilte. Look at all of these fighters, and I think, you know, that's why it's kind of appropriate to talk about them all in the one. All have points to prove going in there, having gone in and not performed or gotten the win in their UFC debuts, or if you're talking about Reese on his UFC return. So, you know, big weekend, 2 weeks in a row really for Irish MMA inside the UFC in March.
Obviously, Gary will have fought just there recently enough as well.
Yeah, he would have fought in February. So look, we're getting off. It was a busy start to the year in 2023, wasn't it, boys? And we're the same again in 2024.
Was Ian's matchup? I actually can't remember now. Was Ian's matchup with Neil? Because remember it was pushed. It was 299 now 298. Was that changed before we recorded the last one? I can't remember.
That was actually changed on the night because Dana originally, I think if I remember correctly, he originally announced it at the start of the press conference for 299. I want to say that he loosely mentioned off the cuff that it was 298. Maybe it was a mistake he made on the night, but yeah, it has been pushed back. It was supposed to be originally in Miami. Now it's going to be in LA at 298 on the Alex Volkanovski-Topuria card. And could shape up a very busy year. Obviously, he was on with Ariel during the week, and you know, just kind of talking about that fight, what it means to him. And I mean, it's the biggest fight of his career. It was without everything that was going on outside, but you know, I think, you know, the biggest killing thing for us, and I think the biggest killing thing for Ian, ahead of the last fight and everything, but he wasn't able to go in there and wasn't able to perform and wasn't able to kind of silence the doubters, for lack of a better term, as well. But someone who did silence a lot of doubters in 2023 was Danni McCormack. She went out there, she put on a rip-roaring performance, picking up the Invicta strawweight title with a win over Valeska Machado. Went out there and defended it as well against Karolina Wojcik in a very successful year that's seen her pick up the SevereMMA Female Athlete of the Year. And we're going to head over to talk to Danni right now, just to discuss that year that has gone by and the year ahead. So let's head on over there to that interview. First guest of the year, Invicta strawweight champion Danni McCormack, and also the SevereMMA female fighter of the year as well. The accolades, Danni, they keep building up. So we wanted to have you on here just to kind of say congratulations in person, and congratulations on a fantastic 2023 as well. You know, a really, really one that will really live in the memory for you for many years to come, I'd imagine.
Oh, thank you so much. Definitely the highlight was winning the SevereMMA award, without a doubt. And I said I'd say straight away, T, that I told Sean Sheehan that I needed a plaque for 2017. So, because I didn't get one, but he said it wasn't a thing back then, but I said I wanted it to be a thing. So now instead I'll compromise that if you give me a plaque this year, you just put the 2 dates on it. And then every year we can just keep etching in the same plaque.
Nice
That'll
one.
hopefully, if you could.
Yeah, hopefully he's after doing it now. I know they've been sent away and you should expect them fairly soon. So yeah, we can hopefully there'll be many more dates coming on. But look, reflecting back on 2023, Danni, you know, a massive year for you. It was a topsy-turvy 2022. We were speaking throughout everything. You know, you're coming into 2023 off the back of a couple of losses and you know, obviously coming into Invicta then towards the end of the year, and then obviously winning the title, defending the title last year. Tremendous year overall.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I think last year wouldn't have been as great if the year before hadn't have been so awful. So it's amazing what a year can do in MMA, and it's amazing how quickly, you know, you can turn things around. So it was super special, because the year before I was even considering throwing the whole lot of it in, and then to think, you know, a year later that I'd won the title and that I had defended as well. So I'm, you know, I wake up every morning with a smile on my face, and I definitely don't, you know, I really appreciate it every day, and I'm so happy I achieved this, and I'll never stop smiling at the 2 belts looking at me in the house. And yeah, it's been an amazing year, but it was a lot of work, and the main work was trying to get the head right after having the hard year. But maybe I inspire a few people out there that's having a hard time that it can turn around and great things can happen for you.
Yeah, it definitely was inspirational, and even like the way you won the title, obviously coming back there from the round one, we discussed it as well. Great comeback, but you know what? Defending the title against Karolina, there was no coming back from behind. It was your most well-rounded display, your most dominant display that we've seen in there. Obviously defending your title for the first time as well. Did it mean, you know, in comparison, obviously you have winning the title, you have defending the title. How did the two of them compare to you, and how did the two differentiate against, you know, what they meant to you?
Like, they didn't compare at all. Like, winning the title the first time was, like, I'd say the best night of my life, including getting married even.
Poor Alan.
I'll say the best night of my life. You know, the marriage was in the morning. So, but yeah, winning the first time on my birthday after like breaking my nose, and just knowing, like, going out into that last round, like telling myself, like, I can't believe you did this, like, you know, you were stopped and we're actually going to go win the title now, like having a discussion with myself. So that, you know, is my highlight of my life. So you could never repeat that when I fought Karolina. I was hoping I wouldn't have to repeat it, but deep down I was secretly disappointed there was so little action in the fight, and you know, it was not as exciting. I like excitement, I like challenge, I like having to be tough and resilient and stuff, and I didn't do any of those things in the Carolina fight because I wanted to get a finish and I wanted to get into the UFC. So definitely not as exciting, but I did what I was supposed to do. And to get me to the next level and to get me to where I want to be next, they're the kind of fights I have to have. So yeah, it was obviously great to be in Boston and all the fun stuff that came with that, and the bloody outfits at the weigh-ins and all that. But,
it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun week. But in terms of like, you know, go to your grave kind of stuff, that that one in March will be edged in my memory forever.
100%. One thing that, you know, we've always talked about over the last number of years is, you know, mental battles that comes with training and competing in mixed martial arts. And obviously you've overcame a lot of hurdles. You've done a lot of work behind the scenes, though, on the mental side of things as well, and things that have kind of all gelled in together. And the recipe was the success that you had in 2023. Could you speak a little bit more about, you know, that the mental side of things and maybe stuff that barriers that you've had to overcome and things that you've worked on to make you a better fighter and I assume a better, you know, it doesn't even kind of stand just to fighting. It obviously a lot of things that you can pick up from that side of things can help you outside the cage as well.
Yeah, like there's a lot of things. Number one, you're not that comfortable in the cage because you don't have a lot of experience. So I think all of it stems from, you know, not necessarily having a weak mindset or being a low self-esteem person, because I'm definitely not a low self-esteem person or anything like that. But I didn't have a lot of experience in the cage over the years, or a lot of competition experience. And because of that, competing created so much stress for me. And then I suppose when you're that stressed, it's really hard to perform, and it's hard to not describe it all as like not particularly enjoyable, and you're not getting the best out of yourself. And then that kind of brought out imposter syndrome in me as well. And oh, I'm not what they think I am, because people around me were building me up and telling me I was great. But when I was in there, like I felt like a pressure cooker, like about to explode, just from the stress of it. So I think, you know, all of that kind of went hand in hand. And then for me personally, I was always trying to prove a point to myself. So that kind of fed into all of that imposter syndrome and self-doubt, trying to prove those points. So I had to do a lot of work on myself, and I had to get comfortable in the cage, comfortable in training situations, comfortable in sparring, comfortable in all uncomfortable places. And that was, like, I suppose, the big thing. And the next thing was that I had to really enjoy it, because if you're not enjoying it and you're so stressed and you feel like you're under so much pressure that you're wishing it away, that you're definitely not going to perform. So I had to turn it into, like, every time I had a fight week, that it was like my birthday or Christmas week, and it was all so enjoyable. Like, you know, as cheesy as you can imagine, I had to try and, you know, think that. So yeah, that was definitely, there was a lot of stuff to work on. And then I suppose the final thing was, why are you doing it? So, like, people say, what's your why? And I've spent 2-3 years trying to figure out what my why is. And every psychologist and mindset person I spoke to, they'll always say your why is bigger than yourself. And it's something that's so much bigger. It's like a legacy thing, or it's a God thing, or it's your children thing, or whatever. But I finally figured out that my why wasn't bigger than myself, that it was myself, and that it was me that I was trying to impress. And when I go in there, I want to perform to the best of my ability, not for anyone, not for my coaches, not for kids in the gym, not for other women, not for whatever, Irish people. I'm doing it for me. And my why is proven to me that I am you know, what I think I am, which is great. So yeah, that would be a really quick synopsis of what I've done with my mindset for the last 2 years. And it's never ending. It's going to continue until I finish fighting. And I'm sure if I lose another fight down the line, that some of this stuff's going to, you know, poke its head up again. But I'm ready to deal with it, and I'm ready for the next step.
Danny, it's fascinating to hear you talk about the mental side there. And obviously your performances in the cage were very impressive this year. But what I found really, really, I guess, endearing and really impressive as well was the post-fight interviews after. And, you know, you're talking there about finding your why. And to me, it came across like, especially the one after winning the title, it was like this outpouring of pride in yourself, which was really, really cool to see. Like, did you kind of know going in what you wanted to say afterwards, or was this kind of just you know, a realization in the cage after you finally got what you're looking for in the title?
Like, I definitely thought about things that I could say, but like, apart from singing myself a happy birthday, that was the only thing I actually had pre-prepared that I pulled off. Like, everything else was just off the cuff and like really emotional, and anything that I thought about saying I couldn't even think about saying. And you know, John Kavanagh had like warned me, and he's like, you know, make a UFC call out or whatever, like, you know, make it about the UFC. And it wasn't. It was just how I felt, and I could see my brother crying like a baby, and that just made it worse. So yeah, it just came off the cuff, and I think that is better because you can prepare all these things, but you know, I could never have imagined that fight was going to go the way it went. So how I was feeling was different than how I could have prepared it. So yeah, that was just pure ugly honesty.
No, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. It came across very authentic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And outside of the cage, I guess this year you've had so much success as well. And between the youth coaching in both MMA and Muay Thai, as well as bringing the Sandy Open to Ireland and everything between yourself and Alan, what's been kind of the standout moments there, and how important has that been for you to have on the away from the fighting aspect to be in the involved in coaching?
Like with the kids and with the coaching, like it's actually not any of the big accolades that like me and Alan get the most satisfaction out of. You know, like we got 4 world championships at junior level this year. I'm pretty sure 4, or was it 3? I can't remember. I'm trying to figure it out in my head here. But yeah, it wasn't even those big things, and it wasn't even bringing the Sandy Open or all the belts that the kids won and all that. It was none of that. It's always like the kid in the gym that's struggling a bit, and you know, they're not the best kid in the gym and they don't win a lot of rounds, and seeing them you know, win a competition or come out of themselves, that they're always the biggest moments for us. Like that's why we do it. That's why we go up to Dublin once a month and run the Irish squad sessions. Like, we just really love kids, and we love bringing them along and giving them confidence, and just seeing any of those kids, whether they're in Relentless or not, just win a fight. You know, it could be just win one fight. It's just amazing. Like, Alan came back from England last night, and he was over there at a novice open with just all novice kids that had no experience, and a young lad named Cruz, he's 7, and I don't think he ever won a Muay Thai fight, like a proper one, not a demo, say. And he bet a really good English kid against a good English gym, and he jumped up on the ropes and put his hands up, and I seen the video of it. I wasn't there, but like, that's the stuff that gets us up in the morning. And I think as long as that's why we're doing it for the right reasons. We're not doing it for the accolades or whatever. We're doing it because we still get warm feeling inside when we see those kids.
You must never get a break with all this, because you seem to be gone every weekend, but I imagine the way you're speaking about it there and how rewarding it is must make it all the worthwhile in the end.
Yeah, and like, I'm not the superhero in this story at all. It's Alan. Like, I really try to hammer down the bloody calendar. You know, I say, imagine if we had like one day off every week, or imagine if, you know, every second weekend we didn't go to England. Like, so Alan would go every single day of the week if he could. He doesn't miss anything. And during fight camps, he even corners all the jiu-jitsu matches. So, and he's only learned all his jiu-jitsu from me. So yeah, it's him. He's the one driving this more so than me. I like being at home making jigsaws and cleaning the house. I love the kids, but like I do like being at home every now and then. But no, he doesn't. He wants to be gone all the time and doing these things. So it's him. He's the driving force behind it, and I'm lucky to have him.
Before I ask you about plans for 2024, Danny, you've gone in from a position where you're a fighter, you're in the gym, you're trying to kind of pick up any tips, tricks, any skills, everything that you can do. You found yourself in a position in 2023 where you fought yourself into a world championship fight. You've won that world championship fight. And now I feel you're going to be in a position where, young up and coming fighters are going to be looking up towards you for kind of some inspiration, for some advice and stuff like that. And I feel that that's a transition for you that you're going to just transition to. And you already are doing that with what Caoilte said there with the young kids as well. Is that something that you're kind of looking forward to as well, as like sharing the experiences that you've had, guiding all these young fighters, whether it's Muay Thai, whether it's mixed martial arts, maybe if it's just your fellow professionals, you've got a big, obviously there's a lot of women in SBG there training with you as well at the same time, and I'm sure that's something that you'll take great pride in. Obviously we're speaking to you today, you're at Grapple Kings, you're over there, you're cornering, you're helping your teammates out as well, so it must feel nice to be in that position as well.
Yeah, I think I always said too much over the years to everyone. I've been trying to help people for years, and maybe even before I knew necessarily what were the right things to say, I always try to steer people and help people. And I think the longer I'm at it, actually, the less I'm saying, and the more I'm kind of seeing how they can go themselves, and are they going to still be here in a year or two's time in the gym, and are they still going to be doing the sessions? And I think when you're young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you do try and help everyone, and you try to set an example. And for me, my passion is the kids, and I'll always help my teammates in the gym, but I'm not going to be pushing advice or pushing fighting down their throat. I'll answer questions if they ask me, but I don't encourage people to do this. They have to really want to fight. This isn't easy. This is a hard job. And, there's highs, there's lows. Most people aren't going to make any money. They probably should go to college or have a job until they know they're definitely going to be able to turn pro, and they're definitely going to be able to make some money out of it. And so I'm not going to ram it down anyone's throat or tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and if they have questions to ask me, I'm always going to be supportive and give them the best advice I can. But I know in the past I had done amateur sessions with the women. I did one, and it didn't go very well. But I'm now into my second or third year with the youths, and I love that. So you're always going to do well at something you're really passionate about, and I'm really passionate about the kids. And once they show up and they show me that they want to fight, I'll try and help them as much as I possibly can. And if people get inspired along the way by watching me, other women, then that's great, and I'm happy about that. But my passion is definitely in the under 18s, and teaching them some skills, building their confidence, and hopefully they become better human beings from it all. And some of them will turn pro, most of them won't. And I hope they just remember this time when they got to go to Abu Dhabi on a plane every summer, that they had a good time, and that they're confident, strong, balanced young people.
Nice one. You'll be swapping around the Danni Mac interview, or your nickname for Danny Mac. You'll be going back into Mammy McCormack after that, given what you said there over the last little while. But looking ahead to 2024, Danny, you've been very vocal over the last number of weeks. You want in on an Invicta card in March. Has there been any discussions? Has there been any chit chat about that happening so far?
All I've heard is that they're still arranging the schedule, so they haven't decided when their first fight is going to be yet. I want on that 100%. I'm really hoping that's going to happen, because the UFC have said go get another finish, and then sure we'll see, like their usual. So what can I do but go and get another finish? And I can't do that unless I get a fight. And I'd like to get a fight in the first quarter of the year. So I'm really hoping Invicta pull out all the stops and can get me on this card. I understand that like other champions and other belts have to be fought for too. But I've even, said to my manager, I'm willing to, if they stick me on a plane, I'm willing to go over and not get paid at all at this point, because I turned 34 in March, and I just seen that Wei Liang got her title fight on UFC 300, and I spent all week sulking how I'd love to be in that fight, and I'd love to fight either of those girls, and I can't even have that conversation right now because I'm not even in the same promotion. So I need another finish. I need a chance. I need an opportunity. And if I get that, then some good stuff could happen for me. But until then, I just have to keep making some noise and do everything I can to get that fight. And I know when I get that fight, I'll get that finish.
Danni, I think you've already earned your spot in the UFC, especially after the last finish. And I know, look, it's out of your control at this point, but I have noticed like an uptick. I don't know if that's the word in your social media, and I really like this. I've really liked seeing this. Like, it feels like you have a bit more of a, I don't know if it's chip on, I don't know if like saying a chip on the shoulder is the right word, or a bit of like a kind of like a fuck you attitude. But is that a conscious kind of decision to be like, you know what, I'm already going out here and putting in the performances. I'm now getting, they said they wanted to finish, I got to finish, and the call still hasn't come. Are you kind of just saying, right, fuck this, I'll get on with this, and I'm going to start calling my shots and telling people what I think, and be damned with what anyone else thinks? Is that a conscious decision you're making?
Well, that's kind of how I feel. Like, so I just put out how I feel, and I do kind of feel like fuck the whole lot of you. Like, there's been a lot of fucks going on in my house. So there is, I have lists of people that are in that fucking strawweight division that shouldn't be in that strawweight division, or if they, I've lists of people I could fight, one after another, line them up like dominoes, especially the undefeated ones, and especially the ones with all the followers. Just line them up weekend after weekend in the Apex, and I'll show up every Saturday night and we'll just knock them down one after another. It's frustrating looking at it, but until now, I don't like talking shit. I like having evidence for my actions, and I suppose that's where my imposter syndrome came from years ago. I had no evidence that I was this great fighter that everyone thought I was, whereas now I do. And now I can stand behind that, and that's why I'm saying those things, because that's the truth. I am the Invicta champion. I've won the belt twice. No one's ever had to go and do it a third time. But it makes sense to me that in my story, of course, I'd have to do it a third time, because I always seem to get the road, the rockier road. So, I do feel fuck you, and I do feel like it's my chance. Just give me that opportunity, and if I fall flat in my face, I fall flat in my face. But I honestly don't believe that's going to happen. Like, if I go in there, I'm calling out top 15 straight away. I'm turning 34, not fucking 24. We gotta get this shit done fast. And until I'm walking out in a world title fight and Wei Liang standing across from me, I'm not finished yet. And that's when that's what I'm looking at right now. That's really what I'm looking at. But anyway, you're getting me right up here.
I love it. That's a great answer. That's a great answer, Danni.
Brilliant stuff. You go out and strangle a few people there now off camera on Gaffy King. So
not even on this show, like, and I'm taking fights out there with the
you'll be going back in. Do you have one for me? Anyway, but look, we're talking about the foreseeable future. Obviously, it'd be great. Like, I agree with Andy. Caoilte agrees with Andy in what he was saying there. The UFC we should be talking about that right now. Okay, not to get you too riled up more about it. Anyone that you're looking at in the Invicta Strawweight Championship, anyone that you feel that you could step in there with, that would draw a good fight, would bring you to your best, would get you that finish that you need to kind of move forward into the UFC? Is there any names sticking out to you right now?
Like Jessica Del Boni was the previous atomweight champion and moved up to strawweight. Apart from her, there's no one worth talking about. Fatima Klein was there, but she moved on. She would have been the perfect matchup. She's definitely going to end up in the UFC as well. But at the moment, I'm by far the strongest person, by a mile. So I think is someone that would get heads turning, and Brazilians always come with 100,000 fucking followers. So bring on the Brazilian Jessica Del Boni, and she can put her belt up as well on the line if she wants, and maybe I'll throw mine in, and sure we could get 4 belts out of it.
That's it. Kick up as many belts as you can, get that collection
Turn
going.
into boxing.
100%. We won't keep you any much longer unless any of the guys have anything here. I think we can wrap it up. I know you got to get back to things there at Grapple Kings, but we really appreciate you taking the time, Danny. We wanted to have you on here obviously to say congratulations, deserved winner of the SevereMMA Female Fighter of the Year. A fantastic 2023. We're looking forward to a big 2024 as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking whenever fights get announced, whenever things get set in stone as well. So thanks very much, like I said, Danny, for joining us today. First guest of the year for 2024. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I'll just say, really quickly, I know you probably already said at the start of the podcast, but we obviously all woke up this morning to that horrible news of Ryan Curtis and his accident. So I just want to shout out to everyone watching this that there's loads of GoFundMe's links. Well, it's the same GoFundMe, but there's loads of links on it on fighters' pages, and on my page, on my bio, there's a link to that GoFundMe. And if anyone would support, or if everyone could support, whatever it might be, that's going to go a huge way to him and his family. Ryan's one of the OGs. He was around long before me, and it was definitely someone I looked up to back in my amateur days. So I'm devastated to hear the news about him. And it's really close to home for all of us here in Irish MMA. So please put your hand in your pocket, and whoever you pray to, maybe say a few prayers for him as well. And we're wishing you all the best, Ryan, and anyone that's listening to this, that we're all behind you, and we wish you all the best in your recovery.
Very well said, Danny. Thank you very much for taking the time, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Okay, deadly. See you later, lads. Thanks for having me on. Don't forget that plaque now.
No, yeah, we'll get on to Sean Heavy for that.
Too. I feel like you should have driven a
I think you should have been pushing for the 2 as well. But we'll see. That's a conversation we'll have off with Shawnee. You can give him a hard time.
I should have won the comeback of the year. So if you're going to give me a second one, throw that on it as well.
I don't argue with that at all either.
I sent in an appeal, but I wasn't sure who to go to. So I think I've got lost in the
all complaints. All complaints
must be in the spam folder. Must be in the spam folder.
All complaints go to Shawnee Sheehan. Shawnee Sheehan is the guy to complain to. And you should be pushing hard for extra trophies. You'd have to put up maybe an extra shelf as well to put beside all the belts too at the same time. But anyways, we'll cut it there. A final thank you, Danny. We'll talk to you soon. All the best. And
all right, see you later, lads. Mind yourselves. Bye.
There's been a plethora of amateur Irish fighters, guys, that have been made the announcement to join the professional ranks. Almost too much to name them all. We've put down a list. We've probably missed a few, so we apologize if we do miss a few. We're going to quickly run through. Obviously, 2 guests that we're going to be talking about a little bit later and talking to a little bit later. Conor McCarthy, Eimear Darcy have announced it, along with Tiernan Loughran, who announced it on the last episode of the Auld Triangle. Head on over there. It was a great interview with Tiernan. He's turning pro. Georgi Groziev, Kikyo, Mario Di Stefano, Kerry-Ann Vernon, Lewis Byrne, Ryan Keogh, Kieran Brady, Jamie Abbott-Bissett, Paddy Rutledge. The list goes on and on and on. And we're talking about a busy 2024, lads. This list doesn't, it helps us and it doesn't help us, because it means we have lots to talk about. We'll have lots to discuss. But, looking down through it, in general, Irish mixed martial arts is in a fantastic place, in my opinion. In the term, speaking with Danny there, speaking ahead to Conor McCarthy and Eimear, who are coming up and forging their path on the professional ranks along with a lot of other fighters. We're kind of, since we've started this podcast at the very least, and I know that we have, Caoilte, been following Irish mixed martial arts even before we recorded this podcast, that we're finally seeing a lot of these amateur athletes that we've been talking about over the last number of years coming into the professional ranks, and there's plenty to get excited about here, isn't there?
There's something really nice about seeing lads that you've watched from 0-0 as amateurs start progressing through, kind of living up to expectations, or kind of improving bit by bit, and then seeing them kind of move pro and that development, and seeing that firsthand from 0-0 all the way to 0-0 in pro, and then going onwards. There's something so exciting about it, and Like, the scene's just booming at the moment. I was speaking to someone recently, and I think I made the point that I actually think this could be, overall, considering like shows in Ireland, amateur scene in Ireland, early pro ranks, mid pro ranks, high level pro ranks in Ireland, is probably arguably the strongest it's ever been in Irish MMA at the moment, or reaching that point. I can't remember a time like this. Maybe 2015. I think 2015 might be the only time I can compare to it.
Like, it was kind of similar. That trajectory was similar in 2015, but it does seem bigger now because we've had a mass spread of Irish fighters across multiple different promotions. That's actually something I'm going to ask Andy in a couple of minutes. But yeah, please continue, Caoilte.
The difference being is, back then I think a lot of the guys would have been, I hope I have 2015 correct, they would have been going to the likes of Barra and competing those shows. Now this time is a little bit different because we've got Cage Conflict, or Fighting Championships, Cage Legacy, Premier. I could go on, and we've all these regional shows with these really good pro fights as well. So that side of things makes me think that maybe we actually are entering this peak of Irish MMA across the board, and I love it. It makes me really excited for what's coming in the next year or 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure you're the same opinion as well, Andy, with the mix of pro stars. Obviously, amateur scene's still very hot as well, but we speak with Conor McCarthy a little bit later on about choices and where to go, and Caoilte kind of suggested a couple of different promotions here, but in terms of, you know, what it used to be, if we were kind of talking about Caoilte back in that first initial rise in 2015, and that the options weren't quite as what they are right now, Andy. Now you've got the likes of PFL, Bellator, obviously. You've got UFC. You've got lots of KSW, Octagon, loads of choices. That's on the European scene, obviously Cage Warriors as well. And on the domestic scene, obviously, Ur Fighting Championships, Cage Legacy, Cage Conflict, Premier MMA. Lots of choices on the island, off the island. And you know, in certain ways it's good, but in other ways, you know, when you're in all of these fighters' shoes, they've got to make that decision on what the right path forward is for them as well at the same time. And I'm sure that, you know, it'll be a difficult choice to make for some and not for others. But I'm sure, like, it's good to have options, I think, at this time is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like options are always a good thing, and especially I think in the early stages of lads' career, like there seems to be a lot of promotions now on the European scene where you can go and kind of get that experience. Like you look like an Andreas Binder, where he's fought on a number of different promotions on continental Europe. He obviously took some fights in Ireland first, and then decided, right, I'm going to go test myself against some of the European fighters. Now, obviously, he didn't get to have that fight in the end with the weight issue on PFL, but you're getting that experience and getting your name out there across Europe. So I think that the opportunities are definitely there. Like we'll talk later on, there's a couple of Irish fighters that are going to be competing on the Octagon card coming up in Newcastle. So more than ever, there's opportunities to make money and opportunities to hone your skill set, and the traditional, if you want to call them, routes that have always been there as far as like the pathways to the UFC traditionally, they're still there too. So I think the real benefit of having so many different options is, you know, getting Irish MMA spread far and wide, but also you don't get lost in the crowd either. So if there's, you know, let's say the Bellator shows, they're brilliant in one sense that there's loads of lads from making their pro debuts and getting opportunities and making money, but it can be a little bit harder to stick out on when there's so many Irish fighters on a single card. In other ways, it's great because it's great for the fans and things like that, and there's great nights from Irish MMA. So, you know, there's pros and cons to everything, but overall, I think this is a great thing, and my God, do we have a lot of talent kind of breaking through into the pro ranks now.
Absolutely. Some of that talent signed to Cage Warriors. Obviously, Cage Warriors have announced the show in the RDS April 6th. They will be back. They also made the announcement of Darragh Ward signing a multi-fight deal at Cage Warriors, and obviously Eimear Darcy, who we will be speaking to in a couple of minutes here, has announced that she has signed. Well, the Energize show kind of announced that news when that Eimear has signed to Cage Warriors, which is an exciting signing that, you know, from a talent perspective for me, to be honest, and the fact that, you know, they're looking at signing female talent again, which I think, you know, it would be a number one thing for me within Cage Warriors in 2024. As I hope that we see, obviously we have Sinead Ní Dhúláin, we have Eimear that's been signed up now as well. Maybe we'll see them all on the April 6th card. But, you know, if I was to kind of throw a question at you guys about that April 6th card, you know, couple of fights that we could have, a couple of fighters that we could have on the card. Maybe I'll go to Caoilte first. Is there any kind of standout fight that you'd like to see on the card at all?
So it's God, I hope that at this point he's gone to the UFC. And I feel like a broken record, lads. So we've been saying this for so long now. But look, if it doesn't happen by then, and it's possible, and there's no sign of the UFC, I'd love to see Paul Hughes fight for the lightweight title against whoever might be in line. I have a feeling it's probably going to be Mason Jones. If that's the case, I'm not sure if the champion is the moment. It slips my mind if there is even one. But yeah, I'd love to see Paul Hughes fight for the championship if that is a possibility. Outside of that, Jimbo Slice, I feel like he's due a good fight too, and I'd love to see him up on the main card, maybe co-main's area as well. So yeah, plenty of options.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of echo my sentiments. I would have picked those exact fights as well. 2 great title fights. Obviously, we could, Andy, probably record a segment with us all ranting about Paul Hughes getting signed to the UFC right now.
And just replay it every single week.
Over and over again. But like, you know, it's crazy. I don't know that situation, but you know, talking about options and what you want to do, you know, Paul did kind of, you know, tweet out, you know, he hopes to share his next steps pretty soon, whatever it may be. If it's a thing that he's not signed to the UFC, I'm kind of looking around and I'm thinking, you know, obviously PFL may be an option as well, but, you know, an immediate option would make sense for him maybe to go in here. And I'd like to see him take on the current lightweight champion in George Hardwick to kind of former featherweight champ versus current lightweight champ. Obviously, you know, we don't know what's happening. I think George still does have the title there, I believe. And he went over to Dana White's Contender Series, but I don't think he relinquished.
As far as I'm aware, I think he's still the champion.
Yeah, but it'd be a fight that makes sense to me, obviously. Yeah, it'd be a great fight as well. Anything else that you'd like to see on the card? Obviously, we're going to see a couple of the fighters that were competing on last year's card as well, and that would be great. But yeah, I'll ask you for your opinion. Maybe you have a couple of fights that you're brewing up there, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking just before we started recording. It's one we talked about previously is James Jimbo Slice Sheen. And I'd like to see him put in the title mix this year, and you know, the first half of this year preferably. So whether he needs another fight before then, I don't know. I think I don't see why they couldn't just lash him straight in for the welterweight title against Janis Bakar. Do it in Dublin. That could probably be you know, a main event even there. Let's say if Paul was on the card. Yeah. With Paul, just to go back to the Paul thing, like we could be blue in the face talking about this. I think if Paul wants UFC and if that's his goal and he's kind of not diverting away from that, then if he's not getting signed to the UFC right now, if it's still not coming, I just want to see him active. I just want to see, I thought what he did in the RDS was brilliant, and I think they can't deny him forever if he just keeps doing that. But you know, it would make a lot of sense if I'm a PFL, I'd be snooping around very, very quickly and trying to snap him up. But look, we'll see what happens there. But yeah,
there's a bunch of offers on the table for him as well. But like you said, I think like if UFC still is the goal, I think another fighting, if like he can't just sit on the shelf, like you said, I think another fight at Cage Warriors would definitely be the best option for him, and that pick up maybe another title there. You know, you're the featherweight champ, the lightweight champ too. You know, so you're kind of adding on to your resume at the same time. You were mentioning Paddy McCurry. Yeah,
like I think it's really just building off the last Dublin show. The likes of Paddy McCurry, obviously on that show, Ryan Shelley and Leon Hill were both kind of primed to, you know, kind of make that next jump with a win. They didn't, so they're going to have to, you know, climb back into the win ladder this year. But guys like J.R. Harris, Solomon Simon, Adam Darby, like there's loads of exciting fighters they already have. And then, as we said, they're continuing to sign more and more. What I would be very interested to see is, like, let's say these guys, and we'll talk about this in a bit about the Cage Legacy show, which looks like a great one being lined up in February. Would any of those guys who have fights on that card, would they end up getting snapped up by the likes of a Cage Warriors off the back of it? You never know. So like to me, there isn't like a whole heap of lads right at the top at title level yet. But this over the next 6 months to a year, I think we're going to see a lot of changes in that regard.
Yeah, we're kind of like, if you want to call it the transition period, you know, I think that we went through that in 2023, and we're going to see that like level of trajectory move up, and especially I would even say like pretty much all the guys in the Team KF camp who may be coming in, maybe a couple of new additions as well. You know, they all have big years ahead of them, so it'll be very, very exciting. Look, we mentioned Eimear Darcy. We mentioned that she has signed with Cage Cage Warriors. So let's head on over and speak to Eimear about that signing and a couple of other things as well.
And joining us on the Auld Triangle for the first time, Eimear Darcy. Eimear, how are you getting on?
I'm all good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks. Look, it's, I guess, the best way of kicking this off after such a good year and a half for you in MMA is how did you get started into it? Because you've been so active, and I guess out of nowhere it just burst onto the scene really and had such an active year. But where did it all start, and how did you get into it?
So I started off by competing in K1. Well, I did semi-contact as a kid, so I originally started off in martial arts there for about 10 years, and then fell out of it as a teenager, and then joined Compound then 3 years ago. So I started off doing K1 and competing in that, and then a year and a half ago I started in MMA. So yeah, it's been exciting.
What's that transition like? Because you're going from the K1, the boxing, all the stand-up to just being wrestled against the cage, taken down, and the grappling side of it as well. Was that hard at start, or did you just take to it like a duck to water?
Oh no, definitely not a duck to water at all. And I'm still not taking to it like a duck to water. Like the cage wrestling, it's slightly easier to kind of understand what was happening in a sense when I'm learning the technique, but jiu-jitsu was just so confusing. And I started to actually think, I was like, is there something going on? I was like, is there something going on with me that I'm not getting this? And I was like kind of looking around at everyone else, and I'm like, are they getting this? Is it just me? But then as I started to like learn more about jiu-jitsu, I'm like, oh no, this is just jiu-jitsu. And you just get comfortable with kind of being uncomfortable and everything not making sense, and then little pieces making sense and not making sense again. So yeah, it was all very confusing, and it's still very confusing at times.
The decision to just jump straight into competing then, like I know you made your debut against Mary Beth Taylor at Fight Project. Was that just instinct? You've been competing for years, just want to get straight in and see how you get on the cage and go from there, or was it planned for a period of time?
Yeah, so it was planned. So obviously I'd been competing in kickboxing, and I'd had a number of fights, and then the idea was around going pro at kickboxing, but then Oisin had been chatting to me about MMA, and that was always something that was kind of like thrown around as I was competing in kickboxing, but it's something that I had never just gone for. And then we kind of talked about my opportunities and stuff like that, and we had spoke about how there'd be more opportunities for me there with MMA, and looking at setting a goal of going pro there then when the time comes. So from the offset, once I started competing in MMA, it was always with the goal of going professional and to be the best in the world, basically.
And of course, look, we know you're about to go pro, and before we get into that, look, you've had such a good 2023 in terms of activity, wins, and it's just been the fights have been something been incredible. Like you started off the year against Kerry-Ann Burnham, and that's a really high level fight for only your second MMA fight as well. But looking back on the year itself, how was it for you? How did you find it? And were there any standout moments from it?
Yeah, well, it was a great year. I was super active, so that's what we kind of wanted, was to just get in as many fights as I possibly could. And like each of those fights had different things that I needed to kind of take back and work on then in the gym. So they're like each fight individually was just so important. And especially starting off the year with Kerry-Ann as well, like she's super strong. She's had so many fights as well. So it was a really good test to kind of see where my level is at and what I need to improve on, what I need to take back to the gym. But it's the same with every fight, like win or lose, each fight I straight away I'm like, okay, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed, this went well, do more of this, do less of this. So yeah, it was an exciting year.
Over the year, I think one fight in particular that stood out for probably most of the Irish MMA scene is the one against Sarah Elliott Sheridan. Arguably the Irish fight of the year on the domestic scene. Was that what the kind of the turning point is? You knew, okay, you're on the right path to pro and towards making that decision?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Like that fight was a really big fight. It was a really big test and a way to see where my level is at. And we had always talked about when pro would be. So then after that, the plan was to go pro. I'd try get another fight in at at flyweight. But after that fight, yeah, it definitely showed. I fought most of the girls in the country, so it was once I had got that experience of fighting these different girls, then I could see where my level was at, and like that, see what needs to be fixed to be able to make that decision.
Do you reckon the kind of women's scene in Ireland at the moment, like it seems to be booming, but do you think you came in at like the perfect time? You know, I know the kickboxing scene it's busy. As you said, the opportunities aren't exactly fantastic for going pro and getting long-term kind of plans out of it. But with the way the Irish women's scene is, both pro, amateur, do you think you kind of entered the perfect time just to develop a career path and go pro and kind of aim towards something, basically?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think when I was doing kickboxing, I was talking about doing MMA. I can't remember who it was I was talking to, and they were saying that it was actually really hard to find girls. And then it was funny because then once I had started, that was like not my experience whatsoever. It was so easy for me to get matched. There was like so many girls, and everyone was like really up for fighting each other. So it was deadly. Like, it was really, really good. So I feel like even when I had started K1, it was amazing because I had gotten so many matches. And then the same for MMA. I've been very lucky that I've gotten so many matches, and I've been very lucky with the matches that I've gotten as well, that there's been so many different girls that have helped me test myself. So yeah, 100%. I think the scene is definitely, and it's still growing now, which is deadly.
And one thing that we don't really have at SevereMMA, and we really need to bring it in, I think it'll probably be brought in next year for sure, is we have the awards, the Amateur MMA Awards, and or the SevereMMA Awards, and we have an Amateur of the Year. But I think after the year you've had and the kind of the way you've burst onto scene, I think I could speak for all three of us here in saying you're probably the official but unofficial Irish female MMA fighter of the year as well at the amateur ranks anyway. And yeah, look, I can speak for all of us in saying that. I hope you lads agree anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
And Eimear,
I'm sorry, Gandhi, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so I know you mentioned about, coming from a kickboxing background, like, were you, you've come into MMA very recently, but like, were you familiar with MMA? Like, were you watching, say, like the likes of Aisling Daly or Leah McCourt, Sinead Kavanagh, Danni McCormack, these females who are fighting out of Ireland? Would you have been familiar with them prior to MMA or anything like that?
No. And like, that's the thing as well. It's so not known, if that makes sense. Like, MMA as it's a sport that's accessible for young girls and teenage girls and just women in general is definitely not something that was known in my life for me. And sport always was, but that sport wasn't. So I wasn't watching those girls, and I wish I had been. But that's why I feel so lucky to have been able to found the sport now. And that's why I will like always recommend even like jiu-jitsu, any type of kind of martial arts for any young people or anyone that's kind of thinking about or interested in sports in any kind of way. And even if they aren't, just something to try. But no, I wouldn't have been familiar with any of the girls. But
yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's crazy that you say that too, because we're kind of immersed in it as well. But it's like, well, I think women's mixed martial arts in the country of Ireland over the last 5 years has just grown exponentially, and it's great. You're right apart. You're right in the middle of it right now, right going into professional. And congratulations! Obviously, I don't know how much you can speak about. Obviously, news came out last week that you had signed and you're turning pro and you're going to be competing under the Cage Warriors banner. What was the decision about signing with Cage Warriors for you? What was it? Why was it best for you?
So obviously, like that's all that I can really say at the minute. But I feel very lucky that this opportunity has came about because they just seem like a really good organisation, and they seem like they're kind of really getting behind women and stuff as well, which is deadly. And I love fighting, so hopefully there's going to be lots of fights available for me. So yeah,
like that's one thing that we've always said, and it's kind of something that hasn't really happened within Cage Warriors as much over the last number of years. So we're hoping, obviously, with the news of your signing and a few others as well, that we can really kind of just make a women's mixed martial arts in Cage Warriors a more regular occurrence, really. Obviously, there is cards coming up, and I don't know, like, I don't want to get you in any trouble or anything like that, but of course you have the RDS card that's coming up and a couple of other cards that are coming up on Cage Warriors. How do you see your 2024 with Cage Warriors, and how many times would you like to get in there and compete?
I'm used to being like very active. I'm obviously going to be going down a weight class now as well. I'm used to fighting at bantamweight, which could still be a possibility in the future. Like, we'll see kind of what happens, but I would just like to get as many fights in this year, fighting in general, as I possibly can.
If you were to put a percentage on it, Eimear, that we would see you on that April card when they come to the RDS, what percentage would you give us?
I can't put any percentages on anything. That's it.
Would you like to be on that card?
Would you like to be on it?
Yeah, I'd love to be, yeah. But yeah, maths in general isn't my strong point, so.
That's fair. That's fair. And look, without looking too far ahead, the current pathway that you take through Cage Warriors is to get to the UFC. Is that the pathway that you're looking to forge in your career?
Yeah, that's my plan. I want to go to the UFC, and I want to build my way through and work through the ranks in the UFC, and I want to be the best in the world. So I want to be the UFC champion.
On a timescale perspective, when would you expect that, or when would you like that to happen?
So like, I'm 29 now, so like, ideally it would be great within the next 2 years to really be able to build myself up through the pro ranks and start to move into the UFC within the next 2 years.
So we can expect to see that level of activity that you showcased last year coming into 24 to 25 as well, eh?
Yeah, I don't have any plans of slowing down. I want to be able to obviously make weight healthily, make sure that I'm minding my body, make sure that I'm recovering well and looking after myself. But like that, I want to be as active as I possibly can, and just keep training and reach more goals.
Eimear, that sounds like a very exciting year, and this is obviously the first time that we've had you on the podcast, and that maybe our listeners will have familiarized themselves with you, and you've really, as the lads have said, and again from myself, a massive congratulations on the year that you've had, because it's been very impressive. I remember watching you that fight with Kerry Ann at the Nationals and being like, who is this fighter? Like, you see someone who's like had a single fight going in against another fighter who's, you know, competed globally in at world tournaments, and you really held your own there. You most fighters that people who be kind of focusing on MMA in Ireland will know, they'll be familiar with from like when they're almost like 16, 17 at this point now. You mentioned there you're 29. So what were you like, I guess, growing up? Or like, I know you said you did kickboxing. Do you have any hidden talents is written that people should know about you to familiarize themselves with Eimear Darcy?
No, I've no hidden talent. I would have grown up. I did semi-contact as a kid, so I would have done that from when I was like 5 to around 16, 6 to 16, maybe for about 10 years. So I would have competed in semi-contact. So I would have done like different competitions in the All Irelands and stuff in that. But other than that, no hidden talents at all. Yeah.
And would you have played any other sports growing up or anything like that?
Yeah, I would have played football in Camogie, but like, I was terrible. I used to go on the wrong side of the pitch. I ran the wrong way. Yeah, awful at my left and right. So Oisin does have to be like, the other one and stuff. So yeah.
If there's any consolation, I had a mate who he played in goals, and he managed to take a kick out one day and score an own point. So you can't be much worse than him.
I don't know if I could have done that. I'm not sure. But,
go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
When you were competing in the kickboxing scene, did you ever come across, I guess, like, there's so many who've kind of come over to MMA ever since. Did you compete against any of them in the past? I know the likes of Shauna Bannon and Sinead Newell all compete in kickboxing before, but did you ever cross paths at any point across the many years?
So, like, I know I must say to Shauna, I can't remember if like me and her, because they were like similar in age. I think she's a year older. So we would have done the same style of kickboxing. Never actually talked to her about if maybe we would have fought each other, but like, we could have in all the competitions. I would have competed a lot as a kid in semi-contact, and then me and Sinead actually fought in K1 a few years ago. I think maybe it was like 2 years ago, I think, because I'm in compound 3 years, so I think it might have been 2 years ago we had a K1 fight. I think that was it. I was supposed to fight Sarah in K1 as well, but that didn't work out. But yeah, I think that would have been everyone.
I know you mentioned you fought Sinead before, but she signed to Cage Warriors. You're signed to Cage Warriors.
Yeah.
I know you might like. Is that something you could see happening again down the line? A rematch of the K1, just in MMA this time?
It could. I feel like fighting anything can happen. Sinead's a great fighter, and like that, I just really want to fight. So who knows what could happen? But I'll be looking forward to hopefully seeing Sinead on Cage Warriors anyway.
Caoilte putting this, look at this Irish
matchmaker.
I would never do such a thing. This is disgraceful.
I'm stealing your role here, Andy.
He's picking up your bad habits, Andy, I think.
I don't know what you are talking about. That's disgraceful, Caoilte.
With in terms of Shauna, then obviously you could have competed, who knows, but I know you've got to train with her a couple of times as well, and I since the Irish women's MMA scene it's very tight knit and you get to cross train quite a bit, but you get to go down and train with Shauna quite a bit, considering she's in the UFC, how valuable that would be as well. Do you get to do that very often, or what's happening there?
Yeah, as much as I can. I get down. I can go down there. We do the Friday nights, and then she can come up to me to train, and then I can go up to her and train and stuff. So as much training as it can kind of fit in with different people is great, and it's obviously great to train with Shauna as well. She's a great person in general. So there's lots to learn from her, and vice versa. There's parts that I can bring for her too. So yeah, it's deadly just to be able to meet different people who kind of have the same passion and love for the sport, and to be able to learn from them. So yeah.
You get to go on to other gyms as well, or is it just down to Shauna, or is there plenty of options?
No, Sarah has came up to me and we've trained together as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get some more training in together now this year as well, because like that, there's lots to learn from Sarah too, and vice versa. And like with our gym, it's always an open door policy, which, you know, he says just when somebody kind of brings good rounds and like a positive attitude and they're nice to everyone, they're a nice person to kind of be around on the training mats, then they're more than welcome to come down.
Eimear, you spoke a bit earlier on about maybe feeling like MMA is almost a little bit inaccessible for women, or that it's kind of hidden to an extent. Are you hoping that you can kind of be someone who can put it in put a spotlight on MMA and show girls and women around the country that it's there for them, and that, you know, it is possible to compete?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'd love that for people to be able to, like, maybe look at what I do and see that they like that. I said I only started MMA a year and a half ago. Like, last October was my first fight. So not the one just gone, the one before that. So like, that wasn't a thing that I haven't like grown up, you know, doing this every day, and, you know, this isn't something that I always knew about either. So there's lots of other women and young people maybe that have that experience too. So maybe they might see pictures and videos and like people's Instagrams and think that, oh well, I need to have been doing all this and comparing themselves to that and think I need to do this to be able to do that. But it's like, you actually don't. You just come down and join the club, and you might not even be to get to the level of wanting to be in the UFC, but it's just something great that you get to do with your time every week. And even just the other things, like, it's funny, the other stuff that it actually prepares you for. I hate the dentist because my sister terrified me, but I had to go to the dentist the other day, and I started to like proper psych myself up as if I was getting into fight, because like that's what I do. Like, I get nervous before I fight, so I'm able to mentally kind of switch myself over to be able to fight. So like, even like that, going to the dentist, I'm like, okay, now I'll psych myself up as if that. So it transfers into so many different parts of your life, like the discipline piece and just like general life, that stuff that people might not think that it does. So even that it would have like those benefits for people to be able to see, even if it's not that they want to get into a cage and fight someone, just the other stuff that training can bring. So yeah, definitely. The
poor dentist will get in the box someday. He'd be
on the chair and everything. Like, it was
stop. It's the worst. It's the worst sometimes, I feel that.
Well, Eimear, thanks for coming on. It's the first time we've had you on, but I'm sure we'll chat to you plenty other times, definitely, maybe throughout this year, especially with when you have a fight coming up. But thanks for coming on, and we wish you all the best for 2024.
Thanks a million. Thanks for having me.
Looking ahead to some domestic action, there's been look at, I was going to be a plethora again. There's been a shit ton of fights announced over the last number of weeks. Cage Legacy, Cage Conflict, all announced monster cards coming up. Obviously, Cage Legacy 20, February 17th. Great fights, Richie Smullen versus Kirill Medvedovsky as a professional.
Banger.
That's an absolute banger. Obviously, we'll be speaking with Conor McCarthy about his fight coming up as well on the card. Maga Zurabov, Georgi Grovaz, Reno Flaherty, lots of great fights on this. And look at card is always subject to change here, guys. You know, lots of moving parts with these kind of cards. Sometimes we've had fights drop out and stuff like that. You know, a couple of great ones here, Caoilte, to look forward to, in fairness, including the main event.
Yeah, the main event's a massive standout. To get a former UFC fighter on a Cage Legacy show is massive and a huge coup for them. So, yeah, credit where due. It's a really, really good fight. This Kirill guy, he's fought at all sorts of weight classes. It's mind-boggling. He's gone up to middleweight and now he's coming back to featherweight, I believe. Or it's crazy, but very, very experienced guy. It'll be it's great main event. I imagine there'll be a huge reception. I can see this one being a sellout, to be very honest with you, given the fact that Richie Smullen's in the main event and you've got the likes of Conor McCarthy in the co-main. But that's definitely going to be that's the standout one for me. The Georgi Grozav and that one, is that bantamweight? Is that meant to be a tournament, lads? I thought I saw this at some point. Could be.
It's been hard to keep up with these announcements, Andy. They've been coming thick and fast. Jan, can you share anything about that?
No, I'm not entirely sure. I think that there was an announcement about Bantamweight Pro Tournament, I think, but I don't know if that's still the case. But yeah, I definitely heard something about that. So we'll have to check up on that, because I don't know what these look. It's putting these cards together is probably pretty hard, and it probably changes quite quickly.
It could be a different one again by the time we're talking about it, when we're right around the corner again. But yeah,
look, it's a banger. Look. Last episode we had here, we were talking about
I wonder will we be let in to cover this one, please.
And we talked about the matchmaking. Tell you what, there's some brilliant matchmaking here.
Great matchmaking.
Let it never be said we aren't fair now. Yeah. This is brilliant matchmaking. I think this is a great card. I think the Richie Smullen versus Kirill Medvedovsky fight, like, to get that on an Irish show is fantastic. Obviously, with PFL and Bellator, that whole situation, I think, look, from speaking behind the scenes to fighters, a lot of fighters don't really know what the hell's going on right now. So Richie's been allowed to take a fight domestically here while still signed to the promotion. So you never know what opportunities this presents now to Irish promotions to get, you know, big names. Richie Smullen is a big name to have on an Irish card against a veteran like Kirill Medvedovsky. That's fantastic. And 4 pro fights on this card. I think there'll be 3 pro fights on the Cage Conflict card the following week as well. So like we haven't been, you know, Cage Conflict have been putting on pro fights, and there've been pro fights here and there over the last number of years. But this is fantastic for Irish MMA to be getting so many pro fights right now. And look, it's a brilliant, with Conor McCarthy's pro debut. Obviously, we've seen Maga Zurabov fighting on Ur there recently enough, and Jorge, I can't remember how to say his name. I'm very sorry, George or Jorge. He's told me before. I've fucked it up every time. But Grozav, he's a brilliant fighter out of HMA as well. So loads of really exciting fights here, and some good amateur ones as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Cage Conflict real quickly, Andy. If you want to continue on, we've a couple of Italian mixed martial artists coming over to take on the likes of Eamon Dean, Henry Corrigan, as well as Tiernan Loughran. Obviously, as we mentioned already, will be making his professional lightweight debut on that card as well, and that's brewing up to be a pretty good one on February 24th as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And look, obviously the headliner there was due to be Ryan Curtis, which is obviously, very, very unfortunate. We've talked about that at the top of the show. But there's still 3 pro fights there on that card. Tiernan Loughran, we had him on last time. I think everyone who's listened to this podcast would be familiar with him at this point. Very, very exciting fighter, very interested in his professional debut and fighting the guy, Andre Flaminio, 1-on-1. Henry Corrigan, also another flyweight. The flyweights in Ireland, flyweights out of FAI are just coming out of every corner and cupboard, and I think I don't know if FAI have the rights to every flyweight in Ireland at this point, but he's 2-0 now, taking on he's fighting another guy, another Italian. I'm not too familiar with him. He's 1-3, and then Eamon Dean. I don't think I don't have Tapology in front of me here, but I think Eamon Dean, he doesn't have a whole lot of fights. Like, he didn't have an extensive amateur career, but he had that fight against Was it Gibson? Troy Gibson? Yeah. And like shocked me with that performance. And now he's gone pro here. So he's fighting a guy. Look, he's got a 3-8 record, but 11 pro fights. So he's experienced. But I would probably expect both Eamon and Henry on paper to go in and get the job done here. And just based on Tiernan's his caliber alone, I'd probably expect him to go in and get the job done against most people in his pro debut. But really, really exciting that they've got a lot of pro fights again, as always. So great stuff.
100%. Look, we mentioned Conor McCarthy. He will make his professional debut on the Cage Legacy 20 card on February 17th. Let's head over and speak with Conor ahead of that fight. Obviously, he picked up the Amateur Fighter of the Year for SevereMMA as well. So we'll talk about that year gone by, the year ahead.
And now we are joined by one of the most impressive up-and-coming fighters out of Ireland, in Conor the Hot Stepper McCarthy. And Conor, firstly, congratulations. You recently won the SevereMMA Amateur Fighter of the Year for 2023. So we wanted to have you on and have a chat, but mostly to congratulate you as well for a great year that you've had to cap off your amateur career.
Cheers, lads. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on again.
Look, it was a really successful year for you, and another successful year. You went 3-0. Were you happy with the year?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, definitely. A few things stopped me being a bit more regular than I would have liked to be, but it was a good year for progression, and I had a few things outside of fighting as well. So yeah, in general, it was quite a successful year.
Yeah, we obviously had you on there a few months ago, and it sounded like it was a busy time. You had a job going on. You were I think you're still doing your degree, right? You said at the time that you're graduating in May. Yeah, and I know that you're working in the kitchen as well, on top of trying to train full time. So I'd say it's a hectic schedule for you.
It's fairly stressful. Yeah. Only another few months of college, so then I'm free. But yeah, it's a busy schedule. I like to be busy as well. Yeah,
well, look, your amateur career has been a quick one. Like it's only been 2 years since you made your amateur debut. You went 11-2, I think it was, overall. How do you reflect back on that amateur career now that you're transitioning to the professional ranks?
I think, yeah, when you look like when I first fought Ethan Gurn, and if you look at my last fight, like I'm a completely different fighter. Like I recently watched all my amateur fights, and it's really nice to see like kind of the techniques I've learned and how I've progressed as a fighter. I think I'm leaps and bounds better than when I first started, and that's only in the space of 2 years. So I don't think I'm nowhere near my potential, but I'm definitely on a good trajectory.
What are the main things? You said you watched them back there. What are the main things, I guess, that you learned about yourself or learned throughout your amateur run?
Well, more so I was talking about techniques. Like I got taken down a few times on the cage, and that's my first amateur fight. And the stuff, it's just like you can hear Peter shouting, wrist control, and my hand just on the shoulder. Like, just stuff that I can't even watch it. Some of the technique was that bad. Confidence is a big thing as well. Like I'm a lot more confident in myself, a lot more belief in my own ability now than I did back then. Yeah, I'm like, so yeah, just more so techniques is kind of the main thing I was focusing on. Like, geez, I think I'm just leaps and bounds better. Like I've came on so much more, added so much more tools to my game.
Obviously, you were coming in as a boxer into MMA, or I know you told us that you did some Muay Thai classes and then transitioned over from boxing to MMA, but you would come in with a very strong striking skill set, and it's the grappling that you then have to go and pick up. So, if you were to compare, like, at what level is your striking, in your opinion, compared to your grappling at this point?
So yeah, say if I'm like you're looking at the stat bars, I think my striking and my wrestling defense, I'm a lot better defensively than offensively. And then I'd consider my jiu-jitsu my weak point at the moment. So over the next space of the next few years, that's one thing I'm really going to start trying to just level them all out, and even get my offensive wrestling better as well.
And when you look back at those fights, what is your favorite fight from your amateur career?
Probably the first title I won. There's a few, and there's like a few cool things associated with each fight. Probably the title I won. It was a cool knockout, like it was a first round stoppage, and exactly a year ago before that fight, I was in hospital. I just got diagnosed with diabetes, so it was really like full circle moment. I'd won my first amateur title within the space of a year of being a new diabetic. Just that was very cool. I sold a lot of tickets to that fight, and the venue was hopping. So I think that was definitely one of the highlights of my amateur career.
And then, who was your toughest opponent that you faced so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not too, yeah, I don't know. I thought Gerald Achufu was a really good striker, I thought, and I got buzzed in the first round. I ate a nice counter right hand, and I had to dig deep, I say, mentally in that fight. But I got the finish in the end, so maybe that was my toughest fight. My first amateur fight, I've never been that tired in my life. I was projectile vomiting once I got outside the cage. I was exhausted, so that seems like to be one of my toughest fights. Yeah, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
You fought on a number of different shows throughout your amateur run, Conor, and I feel like Irish MMA is really on fire at the moment, not only because of the fighters that are kind of breaking through, but additionally because there's so many shows. How do you see the Irish domestic scene? Because look, you are going to continue, and we'll talk about your upcoming fight in a bit, but at a certain point, I would imagine you're probably gonna leave the domestic scene in Ireland soon. So how do you see it at the moment?
I think it's booming, and I think I kind of started when it was started to kind of take off. So my first fight was one of the first fights back from COVID, and I think from then there was just like, if you wanted to be active, there was fights or shows nearly every couple of months. So I think it's doing really well. There's a lot of shows, there's a lot of fighters coming through in the country. I think it's in a really good place.
Conor, I'd like to ask a question about your coach, Peter Queally, his route through the professional ranks. You know, I have a saying, an old dog for the hard road and a pup for the path. And Peter Queally is definitely an old dog for the hard road. That's the road that he chose to take. And I think those rewards of a tough early road in his professional career gave him the rewards later on in his career. Is he sharing any advice with you on the path that he went and maybe sharing some advice on what you should do? Or are you looking to kind of go on a similar path that he went on when he started off his professional career?
Yeah, well, to answer the first part, he's definitely like huge advice coming from Peter. He'll be the one kind of, me and Peter will be leading the way, and like he's going to kind of plan what my career is going to take off, the trajectory and how we're going to approach it. And one thing Peter says, the opportunities now weren't there back then, and definitely we should capitalize on these opportunities. Back then you had to just show up whatever fight. Now you can have a more a better approach to your career and take, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
there was less opportunities probably when the likes of Peter and everyone else was coming up in MMA at the time in Ireland. Now there's a lot of shows, there's a lot of different routes you can go to get to, like the UFC or PFL. So I think learning from some of his mistakes, he'll say firsthand, so we can like avoid some of the mistakes he would have made. So he's definitely such an important asset to have like someone with that knowledge.
Yeah, and then, you know, with yourself, Andy spoke about everything that you've got going on right now. You're juggling a lot of things, obviously your college, your work, MMA, everything like that. So the plan is obviously you're going to get your degree, and then the 100% focus will be on mixed martial arts then, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So from May, it'll just be full-time training.
So do you think they're going to unleash a whole nother level when you can just solely focus on mixed martial arts? Because for the last number of years, like you said, you're juggling so many things. Is it kind of something that you're looking, obviously very important and very wise decision to go and get your degree. But, you know, once you have that done, I feel we could see you level up something serious, because your sole focus will then be on mixed martial arts.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'm nowhere near my full potential. I think I have so much more skill training and like progression to, you know, for it to take place to get to where I want to be. Absolutely, like particularly my grappling, I really want to up that a lot. Everywhere, I just want to become the best version of myself, the best martial artist I can be. So definitely, like it's kind of been hard to balance sometimes. Like maybe training will take a hit during exam periods, and so I just can't wait to just, you know, put like all my eggs in one basket for one time and really just knuckle down and, you know, go after this.
Well, Conor, it sounds like it's a professional approach that you're going to be taking here, and very apt considering you're now transitioning to the pro ranks. Your pro debut is set. You're going to make your professional debut on the 17th of February at the Red Cow Inn at Cage Legacy 20. Now, you told us the last time on here, you were saying, you know, I've got my exams coming up, I'm doing thesis, all this stuff, and you're graduating in May, and you're like, I really hope I'm not going to be fighting before then. And here we are. You booked to fight the 17th of February. How did this come about? And yeah, well, your take on that, please.
Yeah, you sound like my ma. That's what she's been saying to me the whole time. I find it very hard to step away and like from fighting. So I'll just say what's going through my mind before I make these decisions. I'm like, great, you know, I was thinking, right, have this amateur fight. That would be a great way, the Sam Simon fight, to cap off my amateur career. Then I was looking, I was like, well, realistically, I'll get the exams done in May, and then I'm going to have to train for probably a month or two. So it could be July. That could be the next time I'm fighting. So that's a long period just to, you know, kind of sit out. And then you see all people fighting. Like, there's a load of shows in December, and I hate when there's all shows going on and my teammates are training for fights and I'm just sitting on the sideline. So then I started looking at my college schedule, and I was like, well, if I could get a fight in February, I'd only probably be 4 to 5 weeks into my college semester. So the workload wouldn't be that crazy compared to towards the end of it. Then Cage Legacy, that day came around, and yeah, I just didn't stop training. I thought I was going to kind of ease off training with college, but I just kept going. And yeah, now I'm here. Now I'm booked to fight in like 5 weeks. So
With college, usually, like as you said, the first 4 weeks, they're not as bad, but when you're in fourth year, you've got, I don't know if you have a thesis or you've got kind of all that going on in the background. It makes it, you still have that in the back of your head. How are you balancing all of this? And did you put one thing to one side, or how is kind of life built around training for a professional fight?
Yeah, it's very hectic. So I've part of my thesis due next Monday. So, you know, it's like train in the morning, cram study in right up to the point where I'm driving to the gym again, then come back. And after training, like, it's amazing. My head is in the best space ever. Like, unless it was like a rigorous training session, then I might just be floored. But usually after training, like, I'm in a good state to study, and there's actually been a lot of studies showing exercise and retaining information. So that's what I tell myself as well. So it's like, I'd study and then train. Apparently that helps you retain information better. This is what I tell my parents as well, to keep them happy. So yeah, look, it's hectic. Like, even for the exam period, I kind of left it late so that I don't, like, for example, like, say with this fight, I'm going to have 6 weeks left. My study's probably going to take a hit over the 5 weeks up to this fight, and then I'm going to be left with a lot of work to do. So it's just going to be long hours and just trying to cram. That's kind of my approach, and it's got me this far, so I'm sure it'll get me over the finish line as well.
Man, this is actually going to help me. Like, what are you talking about? This is going to aid my studies.
Exactly, yeah.
Surely the thesis supervisor will be a bit sound if they say you have like a pro fight coming up as well.
Yeah, I don't know how to tell him I'm a professional fighter. I haven't crossed that line yet.
Have they not caught that you fight? No.
Some lecturers would, yeah. So some lecturers I've been quite interested in, but it's kind of, I don't know if you know any engineering lecturers. It's like, I don't think MMA would be particularly their kind of interest or ever. So I've never really brought it up to some of them, but yeah, some of them would know and think it's quite cool.
Look, you're set to fight at Cage Legacy, and you're originally scheduled to fight against Ryan Angelo, and that seemingly has fallen out, and you're now facing Rafael Gomez. When did all this kind of start working in, and when did you find out about the opponent change as well?
So I think the opponent change was only within the week, maybe. Yeah, I think it was quite soon about the opponent change. I got the original fight offer, I want to say just around maybe the 26th of December. And like, we decided over Christmas, I finished my last exam on the 19th, and I started training kind of properly. And I was like, okay, if there was a pro fight in 8 weeks, I would take it. We got offered him, and we accepted it. And then he pulled out with an effect. I don't know, there's some reason he pulled out, and your man stepped in, I think, this week.
Fair enough. And like, was there other kind of promotions looking at you as well, or was Cage Legacy the best offer? Or did you have a few kind of coming around looking for you?
Yeah, I definitely got offered a few fights on a few different promotions. Well, like, they've asked me would I like to make my pro debut. Even like the IUR, they were very good to me as an amateur, and I had numerous amateur fights on. But it's just more so the location of Cage Legacy and the date it suited. It's in this like halfway through February. The other shows are towards March and even later, and that would have been no man's land for me with college. So yeah, and the location, like I said, I wanted to have my pro debut kind of around Dublin, somewhere where my friends could kind of all go to. Like it's probably 20-30 minutes away from my house in the Red Cow. So there was a few things that just aligned and it made sense.
This is going to be the first time that you make lightweight and compete at lightweight. Have you done like a test cut before to kind of see if you can make it, or how is that process going for making lightweight?
Yeah, so I would basically, the way I would kind of approach it, I'd be cutting the same weight in a week. Say if whatever the fight was, my last fight was at 160 pounds. So I'll be cutting the same amount within that week for this lightweight fight. So that's kind of the approach. It's just a matter of what weight I have to get down to before fight week.
Conor, when it comes to your weight cuts, I know I almost hate to ask this question because I feel like all we ask you about these days is your diabetes.
Yeah, you're grand.
But I am curious, and if anyone is listening and they don't know, go back to the last episode where we had Conor on, and you kind of explained to us how a lot of what goes into that is you cut out carbs, and for someone with diabetes, that's not great.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going in here, so I guess firstly, like my question would be, is lightweight the long-term plan? Like, are you planning to be at 155 for the foreseeable?
Yeah, like with my current size and my frame, I think lightweight's perfect. I'd be sorry, yeah. No,
go ahead.
I think I'd just be like, unless I get way bigger when I'm older, like welterweight, I'd be too small for welterweight. For a same day weigh in, it would be perfect. But for a day before, no, it would be lightweight's the right way for me.
It sounds like, or at least my understanding anyway, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's a very meticulous process for you. And I know you work with the team to make sure that you're doing it the right way. Would it have an impact on the frequency that you fight? Like, are there so many cuts that you can do, let's say in a certain period of time compared to someone who doesn't have diabetes?
No, I don't think so. So I say like I say I'm kind of unique in this sense. There's probably maybe not as much studies. Like I'm saying there's probably no studies actually on people with diabetes who cut weight. So no, I don't think so. It's just a matter of fact the procedures might change, if that makes sense. So the way you can look at it, like I just have to cut back how much medicine I'm taking, insulin, when I cut weight, because if I eat carbs, I have to combine that with, or I have to take insulin to match it. So it's like a balloon. You're trying to keep a balloon up. Don't let it go too low. Don't let it go too high. Keep it kind of a mid-level. And when you cut out carbs, the balloon kind of starts dropping. You have to keep it up. I think that's an analogy I'm trying to make. So no, I don't think so, Andy. It's more so as I get older, maybe my ratio of how much insulin I'm going to have to take during these weight cuts will change. I don't think it's like I have X amount of weight cuts and after that I'm toast. I don't think there's any crack like that, to be honest.
So we can expect to see a lot of Conor McCarthy over the next few years.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So looking ahead to the year, obviously you're going to compete in February, and then you've some important educational duties to fulfill there over the few months after that through May. When do you expect, or when would you like to be back in the cage after this fight?
Ideally around July, maybe start of August. See if there's dates around then. So like the plan would be at least 3 pro fights this year. So 1 in February, 1 around summer, and then 1 to finish off the year in maybe October, September, around those dates.
Are you expecting those 3 fights to be on the Irish scene?
I'd imagine so, yeah. I got offered to fight abroad, like to possibly have a few fights in a different promotion abroad, but we'll have to see what the plan is. I think, yeah, it's kind of, there's none set in stone at the moment, but off the top of my head, to give you an answer, I'd say, yeah, it would be 3 fights on the local scene.
Do you mind me asking which promotion offered you?
I probably shouldn't say yet. I don't think I should.
That's
say.
fair. That's just me being cheeky here now.
Yeah, no.
I do have a question though that I'll ask you straight. When we've talked about you a lot, and look, Conor, like we will always be unbiased. We will always call your fights down the middle. But I think I speak for the 3 of the lads here when we say we've been very, very impressed with you, and I think that if the right matchmaker can get their hands on you, you've a bright future ahead of you. I have a lot of respect for Ian Dean and the way he approaches matchmaking and Cage Warriors. So I'd be very curious, is that a potential option for you, or one that you could consider?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because I know there is a thing with SBG and Cage Warriors, but I don't know if that really applies kind of to the likes of our gym and other. So yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's not ruled out. Cage Warriors definitely could be a path for me.
Yeah. Well, look,
you think if you could, can I follow up on that one? Do you think if you know, you said it wasn't really a thing, not to get too awkward about the situation or anything like that, but are you looking just to see what's best for yourself? Never mind what situation is happening around. I think Andy spoke for the three of us, and I definitely agree with what he said and how highly we think of you. And it's all about seeing that progression as well. And I think, you know, not belittling PFL or not belittling any other promotions out there who do just as good a job. You know, there's always seems to be that history and magic that's created between Irish fighters and Cage Warriors as well. Just say if someone was to maybe say, if you wanted to go there and another person didn't want you to go there, would you think that you'd kind of go anyway just to suit yourself? Or what do you think?
Well, like, I think all the people who are around me want the best for me, and they would be, yeah, if that Cage Warriors is the best option, they'd be putting forward. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I think anyone around me and associated with me like wants the best for me. So yeah, they like, I know Cage Warriors, like we've talked about, so that could be an option. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, Ian. I think we're all at the same views.
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of, I asked it awkwardly, but you know, you did say it's good to have options as well, and that's certainly one of the good ones as well. In terms of, we were talking about Peter not having any options at all. You have an abundance of options, which can equally be a little bit of a problem too, to try and make sure you make the right move for yourself, I guess is where I was going. But yeah, thanks for answering that.
And that is the beauty, I suppose, is there's plenty of options, and I'm sure, I've no doubt, if if your pro career continues on the way that your amateur career has, I'm sure you'll have plenty of suitors at your door, looking to sign you, whether it's a PFL or a Cage Warriors or whoever, because there's a lot in Europe right now. But look, Conor, we really appreciate the time. Congratulations on a brilliant 2023, and we've no doubt that we'll expect to see some more magic in 2024. Hopefully, some more shout outs to the Auld Triangle, on the world stage. Nationals, we expect 3 arena shows. You're knocking lads out, and you're saying, "See that one was for the Auld Triangle." So look. On a serious note, congratulations, Conor. It's a well deserved. And look, what I would say is as well. For anyone listening, there was a lot of competition this year for that SevereMMA Amateur Fighter of the Year award. Like, there's plenty of lads who put in and had more fights than you as well. So to win it when you didn't have the most fights, I guess, of the amateurs out there says a lot. So congratulations again, and best of luck with everything in 2024. And we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks a million, lads. Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Alrighty, upcoming action over the next couple of weeks / months. Obviously, the big one coming up, Andy. Omran Shaban is going over there to fight for the UAE Warriors title. I believe that's labeled the Saudi Arabian title or something like that. Is it?
All right, so I'm still.
What's going on? You spoke.
I spoke to him, but I'm still. It's for the title. For whatever reason, there's a seed of doubt in my mind with this always. Your man who he's fighting, he won the African, I think it's this way around, he won the African title first, so they have to kind of split, and then they have the UAE Warriors Arabia section, where it's kind of, it's Arab fighters for the most part that would fight on it. He fought that guy, and I'm forgetting names here, went off and fought a couple of other fights, and he won the Arabian title, and then they rematched and he beat him again to unify the title. So now it's one title, UAE Warriors welterweight title, and Omran Shaban's fighting for it, and it's a huge opportunity. And look, Omran's a guy, he's a heap of finishes under the Cage Warriors banner. He's been surging, and I think he's a guy who's been feeling a little bit maybe overlooked, or that he should be kind of, up at that title fight area. So look, he's made the decision to step away from Cage Warriors. He's gone with the UAE Warriors. And what he told me, there's an interview that you can watch now on SevereMMA. He was kind of saying, look, it kind of fits more with his branding, and he wants to kind of reach a new audience and all this stuff. And he sees himself in the UFC. He's not giving away dates. I pushed him a couple of times, be like, come on. I even asked him after we stopped recording. I was like, now, do you believe this, or are you leaving it all up to, whatever happens? But no, he's kind of just putting his faith in the process and everything else. And he's a guy he's a finisher, and a very, very exciting fight for him here, and a big one for him to fighting for a title.
Huge one, absolutely, certainly a huge fight for him. I mean, he wins that, maybe, you defend that once, and then we're going to be coming into Dana White Contender Series kind of territory as well in around the summertime. So, Omran Shaban, what we've seen so far, and, probably has been overlooked in certain terms, because it's like every time you see him fight, he always performs excellently well. He's a guy who's invested in himself, has put a lot of hard work and moved away from home to live in Team KF, and you couldn't only but wish that guy success. Caoilte, over in Octagon, we have a couple of fights coming up as well. Dennis Frimpong and Armand Herzig coming back on January 27th to that big Newcastle show. Frimpong fighting Jan Siroki in a lightweight bout, and Armand Herzig is facing Jake McHugh. That's a rematch that things got very heated on the reality show, and two good fights that we have to look forward to there as well.
Yeah, very much so. Like, Dennis is going in against a lad with a load of experience. He's fought your man Siroki, I can't really say his name. Denny's going to kill us, but he's fought some of the best in Octagon as well. He's really well experienced lad. Split record, but no joke, and it's going to be a difficult fight for Dennis in his third pro fight. But then on to the Armand versus McHugh. That's a cracker. Like, you're carrying over that kind of hype that you had from the reality show, the shit talk that happened, and that carried over to the afterwards as well. It just seems that these two don't like each other, plain and simple. And
fresh beef.
Love it.
Everyone loves a bit of beef.
That's it, yeah. And you can build a good story. And I think Octagon love when they have these kind of storylines they can build upon and create content around as well, and build and hype fights. And I think this is the perfect one. So, it's good to see this one kind of contested where it will count towards the record, and see how it goes. Absolutely.
Not Octagon, but KSW, Henry Fadipe versus Matis Juracek at KSW 91 on February 17th is also happening. We'll speak about that a little bit closer to the time. But last but not least, Caoilte, your guy Martin McNulty is out there in Hexagon MMA Friday, January 26th over in Paris, France. Martin's, had an on and off 2023, not that active, but he's coming in here on January 26th over in Paris, France. And, he's definitely a guy that you've been speaking about and a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably won't be aware of him. He lives over in France. This fight went on the radar for me until I saw it, I think, earlier today, and he gets a fight back in France again. He's only come back from Brazil, I think, earlier this year, had a fight, lost, and which he wasn't too pleased with, and that's 2 lost on the bounce now, but he's hoping to kind of get back to the winning ways now. He's 4-2 as a pro, and I think he's hoping to start making those next moves, and being with Hexagon gives him a good opportunity, good platform as well, and competing in Paris, we might get to see him get back to winning ways. But yeah, another flyweight from Ireland to look forward to,
Hashtag fly, never die. That wraps us up for episode 48 of the Auld Triangle. Thanks to everybody for listening in, tuning in. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, share, tell a friend. Let's help the podcast grow. We would appreciate all that support. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify. But very importantly, just to kind of circle back around from what we discussed at the very start of the podcast, please go, if you can help Ryan Curtis in his current situation, click on the link that's in our description for the podcast. Head over to that GoFundMe, and every little helps in that situation. And once again, we wish Ryan and his family we wish them all the best, and we wish Ryan a speedy recovery, and we send out our thoughts and prayers. Caoilte, please see us out.
Míle maith agaibh agus long go fóill.